And boom, baby. Hey, guys, welcome to Draft Nights with your boy Freddie, your place to listen to sports news and pop culture. We are on Anchor, iTunes, TuneIn, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast Podcast, Radio Public, and on YouTube. And on today's show, we have comedian Ron Placone, who has his own show right now. Get your news on with Ron Placone. He's a really funny comedian. He's been all over YouTube. So let's introduce him. Hey, what's up, Ron? How you doing?
I'm good, Freddie. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, man. So, really appreciate you coming on. So, how you doing today?
Doing good, man. You know, it's been a weird time for all of us. This is we're amidst quarantine right now. I don't know when you're gonna drop this, but the quarantine thing is still going. So it's been it's been a different couple months for me, as it has been for everyone. But we're all getting through, I guess.
Right. I hear you, buddy. I'm over on the East Coast over here in Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And mostly what I've been doing is just staying inside, ordering out if I have to. But, I'm one of those essential workers, Bo. So.
Oh, yeah. No, that's what do you do? Or, well, I guess if you don't want to.
Right. No, by day I'm a truck driver, and by night I, look up stuff to do my show.
Right. Yeah, it's weird for me, man, because like some of my life has not changed at all. Like it's completely the same. Like a lot of the, content that I do with the show and stuff like that hasn't changed at all because I've always just done the show out of my apartment. I wish I had a real studio, but that's not in the budget yet. So, that has all been completely the same for me. But, touring is not happening. So that's a big change in my life. And, collaborating with other people at like different studios, that's not happening. So in some ways, my life is completely the same. In other ways, it has changed drastically. So, you just kind of roll with it. But yeah, it's a weird, like, half of the things are completely the same. Half are like not at all. So.
Right. So, tell us, like, where are you from?
I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I lived there until I was, 18, and then I went away to college, and I went to Indiana University in the Midwest, and then after that, I moved to Seattle for a little while, and then I moved back to Pittsburgh because I went to grad school out there, so I moved back to Pittsburgh for 2 years. Then I moved to Nashville, Tennessee for a little while, and now I live in the Los Angeles area. So, I'm a pretty nomadic dude. I was on the road pretty hard for, the past, from 2010 or 2012 more, like 2012 through about 2016, I was on the road pretty much full time, and then moved here to the Los Angeles area. And, that's where I'm at now.
All right. And what made you move to Los Angeles?
Well, I was what they call a road comic, which just means you're a comedian that just tours comedy clubs and colleges all over the country, and that's what you do. And I did that for a while, and I liked it. It was really cool. I mean, but all the travel kind of started to wear on me. I mean, I was doing about 40 some weeks a year. That's part of the reason I lived in Nashville, because Nashville's like just right in the middle of the country. So it was just so easy to drive to so many different cities. And then when you had days off, to just drive home and be home. And, I had a girlfriend at the time who was, her job was very dependent on us being in Nashville. So, I kind of thought like, well, I'm probably just going to be, I always wanted to go to New York or LA to like try to get into writing and try to get into like other things that the comedy biz has to offer. But, I kind of thought with her gig that would likely never happen for me. So I just kind of thought, well, I'll figure out a way to do my thing out in Nashville. That's fine. And things didn't work out between us for other reasons. We ended up breaking up. So, when that happened, I kind of thought, gee, I guess I should just go to LA. And so I just sort of, I hit the road pretty hard for a little while. I lived in my car for, about a year or so. And eventually I actually toured my way out to LA. I would just book one region at a time until I got to LA. And then I just stayed there and, looked for a gig in LA. And, ended up finding one.
Wow, man, to have the gumption and to have the courage and everything to still follow your dreams but also live out of your car, that's dedication, man.
Yeah, I mean, it was a weird time. I mean, the whole it was weird how my life, I almost didn't feel it because, when you would have a gig, they would typically put you up in a hotel room. And then when I didn't have a gig, I would just go to wherever I was closest to. I had, my family was in Pittsburgh. So if I was in the Midwest somewhere, I would usually go to them. I had other family that was in Michigan. So sometimes I would spend some time with them. I had some very close friends in Chicago. Their apartment was like a second home to me. I mean, it got to the point where they would just leave the key under the mat. And I would just say I was coming, and it was sort of a win-win because, these people that I was close to, I mean, while they were working during the day, I would take care of the dogs and I would make dinner and I would just kind of do all these other things to say thank you. Because if I didn't have a gig, I wasn't quote unquote working. So it was a weird time in my life, but there was a certain, I never had time to get lonely in a way, but it was definitely a little different, and eventually I was kind of not wanting to do it anymore.
Yeah, right. That's crazy, man. That's a really crazy story.
I mean, it's not super uncommon. I mean, a lot of comics, that's what they go through. I mean, most comics, especially ones that are primarily on the road, they've lived out of their car at one point, same with musicians and stuff like that. So I'm certainly not super unique, but I'm glad I kind of had that chapter. I mean, it kind of got me to, because when I got to LA, I realized I'm like, okay, I mean, this is like you literally had to save every dime from the road to get here. You lived out of your car to get here. Your 98 Accord did not make it to California. So, I was just like, okay, you're here now, and you better make this work, because otherwise this was for nothing. So.
Right. So what made you get into comedy?
I thought I wanted to do radio, which I guess it sort of came full circle, because I guess, I quote unquote do radio. I mean, it's not literally radio. It's content, but that's just today's version of talk radio, right? So yeah, I really liked non-commercial radio when I was in college, and I had a couple DJ shifts at the non-commercial radio station, and I didn't have a talk show, but I would talk as long as I could, basically, until you had to go back to playing music, and I really liked it. I just got a rush from it. It was just so cool. So I was like, well, I want to do this. And real quick, I found out that actual broadcasting jobs are almost non-existent, which is part of the reason I got so into politics, because I learned that was because of the Telecommunications Act of 1996, which was a really horrible act that gutted radio. And I just kind of got into all of that stuff. And then I read some article online that to this day, I have no idea how I found this article. And I'm pretty sure it was some archive thing from the 80s. But it said that a way to get into radio is if you do stand-up comedy. So I thought, okay, I played in bands for years. I was a punk rocker growing up, so I played in little garage bands and stuff. And I did the plays in high school. So, I wasn't a stranger to being on stage. So I decided, I'll try stand-up. Why not? So I tried it, and I was terrible at it. But my first time was kind of weird, because most people, their first time is at an open mic night, which is where anyone can sign up, and then you go up and you try to do jokes, and it's sort of like, it's meant for beginners, so to speak. For me, my first time ever doing comedy, that wasn't available to me because it was in Bloomington, Indiana. So I got what is called a guest set on a proper professional show. So I went up there and bombed because I had no idea what I was doing. And then the guy that went up after me, just started crushing. And I actually thought to this day, and I'll never forget this, and the guy who was the feature act that night, I actually still know him to this day. Now we still know each other. I don't know if he remembers me from way back then, because the thing about comedy is like you cross paths with like some of the same people various times over the years. So I don't know if he remembers this about me. I doubt he does. But I actually thought he was a graduate student at my university, because I didn't realize like being a road comic was a job you could have. I just didn't know that was a thing. So after the show, I was talking to him, and he was nice enough to indulge me. And I was just like, I remember I said, so what do you recommend to me? How should I get better than this? And he actually very politely was like, I think you need to write actual jokes. You just kind of ranted up there. Like you need to write jokes. And then I said, oh, so are you in graduate school? Looked at me and he's like, no. And he's like, I don't live here. And I'm like, you don't? And he's like, no. And so I'm like, what's your job? What do you do? And he goes, you just saw it. I'm a comedian. And I'm like, you do this? And he's like, yeah, dude. And then he started explaining to me how it worked. He's like, yeah, I'm getting paid, like $100 tonight. And then I'm going to some other town in Indiana. I'm getting $100 for that. And then after I complete this run, I'm going back to New York City where I have a couple auditions. And, I realized, wow, this is a thing you can do. So I didn't really think about it much after that, because I didn't live in a place that really at the time had a comedy scene. Now Bloomington does, actually, because now there's comedy scenes all over the country. But at the time, it wasn't quite as big as it is now, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it. So when I moved out to Seattle, that's when I really started comedy and understood, or learned about how it worked. So.
Yeah, I've been to Seattle too. Seattle's a really beautiful place, but like it's also weird. If that makes sense.
That's fair.
Like the weather, like the weather is. I don't know where I was. All I know is that at one point in time in my life, I was driving a truck over to Seattle, and but I was going through the top. When you look at the, I was going to like North Dakota and stuff like that, all the way up there, and there's like this highway that goes straight to Seattle.
Yeah.
Through there. I don't know where I was, but all I know is that when I got there, it was like their own little island, because then I had to cross over a bridge. Dude, it was like, it had like all the weather at one point in time.
Snowing. One of the big passes. Yeah. Yeah. The passes up in the Northwest. I mean, it's funny, man. You're from Jersey. I'm from PA, so I'm sure we've driven a lot of the similar roads, and it's just kind of funny. Like whenever my parents say what they consider a pass, I'm like, dude, this has no business being called a pass. You want a pass? Go out near Washington State and Oregon. That is a pass, my friend. Yeah, you get 4 seasons in one drive, because when you get up to the top of the pass, it is snowing, and it doesn't matter what's going on. Yep. Yeah, I mean, my first time going through one of those, I was not expecting it either. I was actually going to a comedy festival in Bend, Oregon. So I was driving from Seattle to Bend, and I had no idea that was going to happen. I was in a little rental car. Fortunately for me, there was this auto stick feature on the car where you could just take it down to auto, and it would kind of control your gears for you, because I was slipping and sliding, and I was like terrified, and I didn't have any chains or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, I just rolled through it, and eventually you just get through it, and all of a sudden you're back in sunshine like nothing ever happened, and it's like spring. Yeah. Oh, it's crazy, man. Yeah. Yeah, you feel like you're.
It's like, did I just pass I was like, did I just pass through the Twilight Zone?
Yeah.
Like, what is?
It's gnarly, dude.
What is that?
Yeah, I mean, when you're driving up there, like you feel like you're driving to the corner of the world. Like you really do. It is a beautiful place, though, like you said.
Right. I was just like, yeah, we literally experienced the same thing, and it's just weird. We're talking about snow, hail, rain, wind, and then out of nowhere, sunshine. Yeah. Like, what?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, what is going on?
I mean, it's one of those things, like, you didn't even know, like, I mean, I didn't even know, like, I didn't even know something like that was possible. But then you think about it, you're like, well, technically you drove up a mountain and then over it. Like, you know, I mean, not literally, but, you know, that's technically what you did.
Right.
Yeah, it's a crazy experience. And it's just one of those things I think a lot of people just don't even realize is like, but for the people that are out there, that's just normal. Like, that's just part of life.
Right.
And it's just like, yeah, I live up in the pass, so it snows, you know, 10 months a year or whatever it is. And yeah, it's crazy, man.
Right. Like, I wouldn't even want to be the weatherman.
Yeah, right.
In that town. Be like, listen, folks, we're going to have all the weather today. It's going to rain. It's going to rain for like 15 minutes and snow for about 30. Yeah. Right, and then yada yada yada, and just like, god damn, like, when are we gonna have just a nice day? Like, after, and then it's gonna be sunshine for like an hour.
If you're a big skier, though, you're living in paradise. I mean, if that's your thing, right, you are living in paradise because you're not subject to the snow. It doesn't impede on your daily life, and you can go to the mountains literally whenever you want, and you're able to ski. So, right. So I get how it appeals.
If you love the outdoors,
I mean, I get how it appeals, but. Yeah, for me, it's just, I mean, I'm kind of more like you. It just kind of really intimidates me a bunch. Like, I remember at one point, I pulled over, and I asked the guy if I was still on the road that I was supposed to be on. I saw some random dude, and I just rolled down my window, and I was like, is this still, I think it was like Route 26 or something like that. I was like, is this still Route 26? I couldn't, my visibility was at like 0. And I'm like, am I still? Right. And he goes, yeah. And then before I knew it, all of a sudden, I was just off of it, you know? And this was before the days of Google Maps, so like it's not like I even had satellites to help me. Right,
like that's another thing that like surprises me, because like not even surprising me, but like some things I think about, like what we have now as opposed to what we had before.
Yeah,
you know, like before we really had to have like a map and everything like that to get around, or you do it by freaking memory. Yeah. Because your parents would drive you, and you know you would you would just pay attention to all these little landmarks. Okay, we made a right on this statue guy over here, so you know that's how I get home.
Yeah,
right? You know,
remember,
but like,
well, I remember too, like printing out the MapQuest directions. Like you would MapQuest stuff, and then you would like print it out and bring it with you, and then just have it in your front seat.
Oh I remember those days.
Yeah. That's crazy. Now you just plug it in. I like that better.
So on your days of being out on the road, right? What other comedians like have you been out there with, or were you like a single traveler, or would it just be like, hey, like, you know, 2 or 3 other comedians will follow me, or you know, we're going to meet at the same spot and do the same gig at the same place or something like that?
So it varies. There is no like one set answer to that. Basically, like when you're just on the road, like the way it works is you're just going to different clubs and you're not necessarily an attraction. Like it's not like the people would come to these shows because my name was Rob Lacombe. They would come to these shows because it was comedy night and they were just going to a comedy show. So I would, you know, like there were just other road comics that you would work with. And sometimes if you really liked hanging out with somebody and they were a headliner and you were a feature or whatever, you guys would go out together. Like you would just ask, you know, the agent, like, hey, can I do these dates, and can Rob Lacombe come with me, or can so-and-so come with me? So there was a little bit of everything. I mean, I had a buddy named Bubba who also lived in Nashville. And when I was in Nashville, we would travel together a lot. Because, you know, we just got along and we just liked working together. But then eventually I got bumped up to headliner. So we couldn't work together anymore because we were both headliners, you know, like basically like I got a promotion or whatever you want to call it. And
Right.
When I would do colleges, that was usually you're just brought in as an event for a college, so you're on your own there. And then, with other clubs, it just kind of varied. Because what I would do is, like, if I would get a college gig, like in Michigan or whatever, I would try to be like, okay, I have this college gig on Wednesday. I'm going to try to work this club Thursday through Saturday. And then I would contact them and I'd be like, hey, is your club open? Can I be the opener? And, you just kind of hope that it worked out logistically for you. It wasn't always easy, because you're just kind of like sitting at Google Maps going, how far is this town? How far is this town? And then you would just be like, okay, I'm close to these markets, so I'll email these clubs, see if one of them's open, so I can do this weekend at this club because I'm at this college on this day. So it was just a lot of logistics and a lot of reshuffling and rescheduling because, sometimes you might get an offer to do a college in Indiana. And, I should mention that colleges pay a lot better than clubs do. For someone at my level, at least that was the case. I mean, if you're a big name celebrity, the game changes again completely. But, for someone where I was at the time, where I was just an unknown road comic, colleges pay significantly more than clubs do. So, there's one time where, hey, I got a club this weekend in North Dakota, but I just got offered this college in Indiana that pays, a lot more. And typically, a lot more, yeah. And if you're honest and you just tell the booker, they'll understand. If you're like, hey, I got an offer for this college, I can't turn it down. Can you, could you let me out of this weekend? And be sorry. Typically, if you're someone who works for them a lot and you're reliable and you have a good reputation and, you're not someone who's going to, drink away their paycheck at the venue and they get a phone call complaining about you. If you're not one of those acts, typically they'll be like, okay, we understand, you got bills to pay, we'll let this slide. But you're also not going to be in their good graces for a couple weeks. Like, they're not going to rush to get you more dates. So it's, it's the business, it's the game, and that's kind of how it worked. And then as far as celebrities, I'm only open for like a handful of like big names. I mean,
Well, you could mention like some other comedians, like, that were on the road with you. They don't have to be big names, but just some of the guys you was out there with.
Yeah, I mean, there's no one like in particular from my road comedy days. I was always kind of like a shark just because I kind of had to be, because like I would do colleges and I would do all this other stuff. And for some bookers, I was a headliner. For others, I was still a feature. So I was kind of just all over the place. And then when I lived in Nashville, I was pretty active at the local comedy club Zanies. So I guess I actually did open for like I've opened for Richard Lewis, I've opened for Rory Scovel, I've opened for Chris D'Elia, I've opened for Lonnie Love, I've opened for Bruce, I've opened for Tom Green, I've opened for Carlos Mencia, I've opened for Janine Garofalo.
Oh, wow.
Which that was really cool. I was kind of Janine and I like got along really good, and at the time I was like a road dog, but we talked about like punk rock and Art Crumb, Bill Hicks and stuff. So I was really hoping she was gonna like offer to take me under her wing and let me open for her, because I had a really good set that night too, but she didn't, and I was too shy to like ask. But anyway, so yeah, I opened for her. I've opened for Kathleen Madigan. So yeah, I guess actually I have opened for a good chunk of people. And then since I've lived in LA, I started working with Jimmy Dore on his show, and now I have a comedy tour with Graham Elwood, who Graham used to do Benson's tour, and now Graham and I have our own stand-up tour. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
All right, is there all right, so all the comics or all the shows you've done or all the comics that you opened for, right? Have there ever been like any funny moments that you have that you always like to share with people, like whenever you're out with them, like, oh man, this happened, that was so hilarious when I was out there with such and such?
One time I called Jay Farrow, and also in his intro, he was doing a movie with Ice-T because Ice-T
Okay.
does a lot of movies, and I accidentally.
Ice-T or Ice Cube?
Oh, now I forget which one. I forget which. They both act a
All right.
lot, though, right?
Well, Ice-T is the one that's always like on that show
he's on
Law and Order.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure it was Ice-T, and but you actually, you know, I had a brain fart and said Ice Cube, and they got a big kick out of it. They were just laughing so hard in the green room, and I was so embarrassed because I mispronounced the guy's name and I said the wrong credit. Like I was just humiliated. But he thought it was hilarious, and like everyone with him just thought it was hilarious. And they like whenever the show was about to start, they just like would do a mock of my intro. Like the music was playing and I was getting ready to go on stage, and they're like, "Don't forget, Ron, it's Jay Farrow with Ice Cube," and I was like, "Oh, I'm such a geek. I'm such a geek." And so I don't know what. I know Jay Farrow is doing very, very well for himself, and but he's a super nice guy and didn't hold it against me when I butchered his intro. And I really didn't mean to. It was an accident. That's why I try to pay it forward, man. Whenever an MC mispronounces my name and like they get real embarrassed about it, I'm like, dude, it's. Let me tell you about the time I called him Jay Farrow and said Ice Cube, and the other thing I did is I called him. And again, these are just brain farts you have. Like, you know better. You just like have a brain fart like on stage. Because that was always the thing that made me nervous. I was never nervous about doing my jokes, but I was always nervous about making the announcements that I would fuck something up. So I did. And one time I called Bobcat Goldberg.
What?
Not like to his face. Like I was making announcements. Like sometimes after a show, if you're the MC, you announce future shows. Like you go, "Oh, thanks everyone for coming tonight. By the way, we got a big show coming up." So that was my gig. I was the MC at the time, and the show's over, and I say, "Give it up for your headliner." And I got the headliner's name right, thankfully. And then I go, "Oh, guys, in 2 weeks we got a special event. You can grab tickets before you leave tonight if you're interested. Bobcat Goldberg." And you just see this club full of people kind of looking at each other and then looking at me like, "What the fuck's he talking about?" And then I just go, "Good night," and just walk away. And the club owner's like, "What the fuck's wrong with you?" But so anyway. So I feel like that's a pretty I mean, I've had crazier stories than that. Like it's not like, but that just comes to my mind. It's just times where it's like, oh man, that was goofy. But yeah.
You have crazier stories than that? Like, tell us, man. You don't have to give out names.
Well, one time I got too drunk. Well, the first time I ever went out, I was so excited to go out on the road. Like it was just a big deal because it was like a rite of passage. Like you got booked to do road dates, and what I got booked on was a thing called a triple run, which comedians know what that is. It's basically these really long runs through Montana and Idaho, where when all is said and done, you don't make a dime because the gigs do not pay much and the driving is a lot. And but it's a rite of passage. It's like comedy boot camp, and if you survive a triple run, you've really earned a stripe. And I got booked to do a triple run out of Seattle, and I was going to Montana and Idaho, to play these little like dive bars and stuff. And the headliner was a guy out of LA, and he was like a writer in LA who he was basically doing these road dates for fun. Like he was basically he had some time off and just wanted to go out on the road and do some shows. So he did, and I was his opener. And, it was just like a total education about the business that entire trip. Because, like, you have 8 hours in a car with somebody a day, and you can just talk to them. And I remember the one night I was just so geeked to just be a touring performer. And, afterwards in these little towns, a lot of the people there, like, they don't realize that you're not famous. Like they don't realize, like they think it's a deal that you're there. And so people are buying you drinks and stuff. And I remember I got so drunk That's how drunk I got. And I remember the next morning, I thought, I'm done. I was like, he's going to call the booker, and he's going to say, this kid got so drunk, I had to carry him back to his hotel room. What a fucking idiot. Like, I'm never working with this guy again, and you should never book him again. I thought my career is over, because if I don't do another triple run, I can never do comedy. And,
right.
You know, so I was mortified. And then the next morning in the car, I walk over, and I have, like, my apology ready. Like, and I was like, please don't think I'm not professional. And I just go, the guy's name was Jerry. I go, Jerry, I'm so sorry. And he's like, for what? And I was like, well, dude, last night. And he's like, dude, we're on a triple run. He's like, you think I've never gotten so hammered I needed to be carried back to my hotel room before? And then he just, like, patted me on the back, and he's like, welcome to the road, my friend. And I was like, all right. And he goes, let's go get some food for that hangover. So yeah, I mean, and now that I think about it, like, as I'm a little older and more, it was probably a rush for him, because, you know, it was probably really cool where he, like, just sees this new comic that has, like, stars in his eyes, that's just so excited to be out there experiencing this. Because now that I'm, like, you know, kind of more, like, I don't want to say, like quite, you know, like, I'm not necessarily, like, closer to where he was at, because he was already, you know, a very established writer and stuff like that. But now that I like have a little bit more under my belt compared to back then, like, I get real excited when I meet, like, a new comic that reminds me of where I was at, you know, a decade ago. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And if I was never doing road dates like that again, I would want to be with somebody like that, you know, instead of, like, some jaded feature who's, like, wanting to have the headlining job and is, like, kind of angry that they're not. I'd rather have, like, some new kid who's just so starry-eyed and excited to be there. And, you know, I'd be willing to carry them back to their hotel room if they drink too much. That'd be a blast. I'd call my wife and tell her all about it. I'm like, oh, dude, the feature got hammered. I carried him back to his hotel room. Like, whatever. So, you know, looking back, it probably made it more fun for the guy. So.
Right. Of course. I mean, you're having a great time. Everybody's drinking, and, you know, sometimes that happens.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, you know, it happens to the best of us.
Okay, and so when you're on your show, right? I mean, when you're doing your show, like, you know, a lot of comedians have, like, certain topics that they like to talk about, like, but, like, you know, some others go, like, everywhere, right? So, like, when you're writing your comedy, is there, like, a specific, like Kevin Hart loves to talk about his life a lot, you know, but then Dave Chappelle, he talks about almost everything. Like, you know, it could be everything could get, you know, a shot at. So, like, is there like specific avenue or specific type of comedy you like to talk about?
Well, I mean, I definitely do a lot of political stuff and a lot of topical stuff.
Okay.
Because, you know, Get Your News On with Ron, like, there's a, you know, it's about what's going on in the world, and then, you know, the Jimmy Dore Show is also a political comedy show. So, you know, when I'm writing, so I guess, like, the short answer is it totally depends, because, you know, like, when I'm writing stuff, like, I write for Jimmy's show, as well as my own. And, you know, when I write for him, typically it's based on something going on in the news, and he usually sends me what he wants to talk about, and then I come up with some jokes for it. You know, the same way, like, late night works or anything like that. So that's, like, a specific thing. And, you know, and I'll do the same for my own show if there's something I want to talk about and I think is something. And then as far as my stand-up goes, though, that's a little different, because that's sort of all over the place. So my stand-up, I'll talk about, you know, everything. Although, you know, my stand-up show is pretty political, too, because, you know, a lot of people coming out to the shows, they know me from the YouTube shows and stuff like that. So, you know, I talk about the stuff I want to talk about. But you know, I also have jokes about, you know, my relationships and my, you know, like all that stuff. So it's a little bit everything.
So you're more of a cat person than a dog person?
I'm an animal person, but yeah, I mean, I have a special place in my heart for cats. I mean, I have a cat, like my cat Lucy, which you know, I have a webcomic about her called Lucy and Ron, and so yeah, I mean, I'm a big cat person. I like dogs a lot too. When I got to Los Angeles, I was actually a dog walker by day for a little bit when I first got here, because when I moved to Los Angeles, I wasn't going out on the road anymore. So, you know, the way I made a living was just non-existent for me anymore, because I was trying to stay in LA to find a gig, right? So
Right.
I needed to do something to kind of supplement my income until I found, you know, a job in the biz, so to speak. So I was a dog walker by day for a little while, and I loved it. I love animals a bunch, and I just never had a dog because, you know, basically all the traveling, I feel like it would stress a dog out too much, whereas like a cat is a little more chill about that. Like, they know you're coming back. A dog doesn't know you're coming back. So,
Right.
so yeah, I mean, I love cats a bunch, but I'm definitely an animal person. I don't, you know, I wouldn't say like I'm a cat person and not a dog person. It's just I'm an animal person, and cats, you know, really got a special place for me.
Okay, and you also mentioned that you're married, right?
I am married. It's been 2 months actually. I got married.
Oh, wow.
I got married right before the world shut down. I was really lucky. Like, if my wife and I had picked a different weekend, we would have had to cancel. We were literally the last weekend before everything shut down, and we didn't know what was going to happen. You know, I mean, it kind of took the whole world like, oh man, this is happening. But yeah, we got married like right before. So it's kind of crazy because it's like, you know, our neighborhood's pretty much shut down, like most of the country is. And it's weird walking around where everything's so empty. Whereas like 2 months ago, it was like so active and alive, because not only was everything open, but all of our friends and family were in town for our wedding. So it's a weird paradox right now, you know. But yeah.
So what do you think about these virtual weddings? If you ever heard of them?
I've heard of them, but that's as far as it goes. You know, I mean, I don't. If I would have been in a situation where I would have had to cancel, I think we just would have rescheduled. I don't think we would have done a virtual wedding. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm old-fashioned. I don't know. Weddings are a blast, man, and I feel like, you know, part of it is you got to be there in person. You got to be on the dance floor with everybody, and you got to be, you know, eating the food, drinking the booze, and mingling, and saying hello, and you know. So I don't know. I mean, hey, people should do whatever they need to do, and I, you know, wish everyone the best and applaud them. But I think personally, had we not been able to have our wedding, I probably would have rescheduled it.
Yeah, like I was actually, what are the guys called? Groomsmen at the last wedding with one of my friends, and I had a good time. I had a really fun time, and like the bride to be, well, the the bride, she was mostly in control of everything.
Yeah.
But we were really cool friends though. But I like, I still had a lot of fun, even though like she wasn't that controlling, but like she was like on it. If you could, if that makes sense.
I mean, yeah, that's sort of par for the course. You know, I mean, it's our wedding was pretty chill, so we never really had any like tense. I mean, there were a few like kind of like minor moments, but nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, it was pretty. It's one of those things. I mean, everyone says it, and I guess I experienced it too. Like the day itself is like such a rush that it's just this big joyful blur where it's like you had so much fun, but it just goes by so fast. Like I felt like my entire wedding was like 20 minutes long. You know, like it just goes by.
Really?
It goes by so fast, man. And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's a special thing. You know, it really is.
Right.
I'm very glad and I feel very fortunate that, timing worked out for us and we were able to get married.
Yeah, man, that's you guys got super lucky with that.
Yeah, we really did. And yeah, every day we kind of like look at each other and we're like, God, we're so lucky we picked that. And even our friends and family say that. Like some of my friends have been texting me and they're like, you know what? I am really glad you guys picked the weekend that you did, because if the world was going to shut down, I can't think of a better way to go out than to have a big celebration with a bunch of my friends. And, like that was really cool. Like I got to see some friends I don't get to see because, we're all scattered throughout the country now. Like my friends and my wife's friends. I mean, my wife and I didn't grow up together or anything like that. We met out here in California. So it was, there were a lot of mini reunions going on, like a lot of my college buddies seeing each other again, and a lot of my high school buddies seeing each other again, and then the two camps meeting each other, and it's a special thing.
That's awesome, man. So let me ask you, since you're mostly talking about politics, how do you feel about this whole our political everything? I should say. I was gonna say political environment.
I think it's a mess right now. I mean, and that's putting it gently. I think it's a really big mess. I mean, I think that our response to this pandemic has been nothing short of scary. I mean, it's just we have no idea what's going on. Our federal government literally just gave trillions to the banks while telling everybody else to pretty much pound sand. And then they took a vacation. They literally just transferred wealth up to the banks and then just took a vacation. It's like, at this point, why don't we just have an ATM that only Wall Street can use? So that way, at least more people know what's going on, And so I think it's a pretty big mess. I mean, I think there's some people in the electoral politics realm that are trying to do the right thing and they're well-intentioned. But unfortunately, there's only a small handful of them, so they're outnumbered by the majority of representatives in both the Congress or the House of Representatives and the Senate, who are just kind of bought and paid for by the donor class. So, I'm kind of one of those people where it's like, I critique the system as a whole, and I think that we're in a pretty rough place right now, but I kind of got to maintain a little bit of hope that we're going to come out of all this better off, and we're going to kind of take a turn for the positive as far as like realizing what we have to do regarding climate change, reassessing our attitude towards work in general. You mentioned you're an essential worker. You are, you work in logistics. You're, deliveries that you make, people rely on. I don't know what exactly you deliver. It doesn't really matter. But, we're really realizing who the true back economy is. And it's not, the big cats at Wall Street. It's not, these stock investors. It's the people who, keep our restaurants going and keep our grocery stores going and keep our, keep things moving throughout the country. And we don't have to, there's a lot of different people who have a lot of different jobs where they don't have to be sitting in traffic 3 hours a day. They can actually do so much stuff remotely. And so, I hope that at the end of all this, we kind of come out, with a little bit of a better insight on just the world at large. Because in so many ways, the United States did need an intermission. And in some ways, that's what this is. I try to see the positive in it, and I hope that we take a better turn once all this is over. I don't know if we for sure will or not, but I hope we do, and I feel like there's a chance we will, and that's what I'm gonna try to do everything I can to make that happen, and we'll see what happens.
So I get the feeling that you're like an optimist.
I try to be. I mean, I guess it depends on who you ask. I mean, a lot of people would say that's not the case because, I'm not one of these, I'm not necessarily like I'm not one of these people that like sort of pretends like our system is hunky-dory, like I kind of call it out for what it is. So, some people kind of see that as cynicism. I just kind of see it as realism. And if it is cynicism, I think it's the constructive kind, not the counterproductive kind. So, but I would say I'm an optimist. Like I do, I do maintain some hope that, humanity is going to take, a better turn. I do maintain some hope that we are going to do something about climate change before it turns into, before we reach the point of no return, which we got about 9 years. We got to act, otherwise we're going to reach the point of no return. So, I do maintain hope that all those things are going to happen, even with the current situation we're in, which, as far as the 2020 election goes, there isn't a lot of optimism coming from my end. There's very little. I think Trump's going to win again. And I think that, on a personal level, I've just been kind of bracing for that. Like, okay, so we're going to get 4 more years of Trump. What does that mean? What does that mean as far as the world is concerned? What does that mean as far as this country's concerned? What do we do? And, that's kind of where I'm at.
And I would say, why do you think? Because I have similar feelings as well. I really do believe Trump is going to win as well. But I want to know why you believe Trump is going to win, and then I'll give my take on why.
I think there is no chance that Joe Biden beats him. I think that the only reason I think there's even a little bit of a chance for Joe Biden is because because we're amidst a pandemic, and because this is such an unprecedented time, you never know what could happen between now and November. If we were to miss the pandemic, I would say there's no chance in hell Joe Biden has anywhere close to a chance at beating him. Joe Biden, first of all, is an absolutely terrible candidate. We can go issue by issue. The guy's been on the wrong side of almost everything his entire career. He's basically a Republican himself. He's inspiring to nobody. He's not really, his campaign is like borderline inactive. They're just repeating the playbook from Hillary Clinton in 2016, and Hillary Clinton lost in 2016. They're repeating the exact same playbook. He's not really speaking in public much for a number of reasons. One of them being he has a rape allegation against him. And they being his campaign, knows that he's not able to raise his poll numbers, meaning every time he talks, people like him a little bit less. How does someone like that get a career in politics, you ask? Well, they get a career in politics because a bunch of big pocket donors who know they're going to do their bidding buy a career for them. That's what happened with Hillary Clinton. That's why when she was making those Wall Street speeches, she talked about her public position and her private one. Joe Biden is the exact same. So, we live in an outsider time politically, and Trump won in 2016 because he was some outsider. In my opinion, he's not. He's not an outsider. He's the same politically as the GOP. The only way he's an outsider is that instead of being bought as a politician, he was the person doing the buying for a lot of years. And that's something he has said himself. So this idea that Trump's an outsider, I think is just a fairy tale. But he sold that idea to people enough that he won. And so because we live in that outsider time, only a real outsider could beat a fake one. And, that real outsider was Bernie Sanders. So, when Bernie suspended his campaign, the only guy that could have beat Trump went away. And I think that there's no way Biden beats him. And I don't think the Democratic establishment really cares all that much, because I think more than anything, they wanted to make sure someone like Bernie Sanders didn't get close to the White House, because that would kind of disrupt their apple cart a little bit. They'd rather have, sort of this establishment, nothing's really going to change candidate than someone who really wants to shake things up and change things. So, they'd rather have someone like Joe Biden in there, and if he beats Trump, that's great. But if he doesn't, well, the status quo doesn't change, and their gravy train keeps rolling. So that's why I think we're going to get 4 more years of Trump.
Okay. Well, I would agree with that. Right, a lot of what you said, I would agree with. Now, as far as why I believe Trump is going to win, it's pretty simple. Like, there's a lot of what you said. Like, there is no enthusiasm for Biden at all. The young people, like, throughout this whole, I don't want to say since 2016, ever since Bernie ran in 2016, the Democratic Party, I feel, just they have just been showing the progressives the middle finger throughout the whole time.
I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
You guys they confirmed all of our worst suspicions. You know, I mean, I'm a lefty. You know, like I've been on the left as long as I've been paying attention to politics, and anyone who watches my show knows that. And so for people like me, it's not like we ever felt like, oh, the Democratic Party is great and that's where we belong. We've always just kind of felt like, well, we're not really represented on the ballot politically, but these guys aren't Republicans, and I guess they kind of want the same world we do. They just have a more incremental approach to getting there. And then in 2016, and even before 2016, all that was proven to not be the case. All that was proven to be like, actually, they hate you the most. You being the progressive, they hate you the most. And they don't want you. And that's what the Clinton campaign did. You know, we were waiting around to see, okay, what does the Clinton campaign have to say to us? And we were told what they have to say to us. And like you said, if you put it perfectly, they gave us a middle finger. They said, we don't need you, pissed off. And we said, okay. And then look what happened. So, and that brings us to present day where it's like, yeah, we live in a country right now where it's like, yeah, if you are a left-leaning person, you are not represented in our politics at all. And that is by design. And, the two-party duopoly really despises you because you're a threat to their apple cart. And, personally, I think we're at a point we need an entire new party. We need to build an entire new party. And, that's not an insurmountable task, but that is a difficult task.
I 100% agree with you on that one, man. I really, really do, because like I constantly get this argument put at me with saying, well, if you're not going to vote for Biden, and if you don't vote for Biden, to vote for Trump. And I'm just like, how does that work? You know what I'm saying? How does my vote magically go, or non-vote magically go to the other person? Like, how does that work? So I was telling that, and then they just like, they want to say like metaphorically or whatever, speaking or whatever. And I'm just like, it doesn't work like that. It really doesn't work. If I don't want to vote, they don't get my vote. Point blank and period. It's not like if I'm not voting for Biden and I'm not voting for Trump, neither of them get my vote. So that's not how it works.
And it's because people are kind of conditioned to feel that way, and they're also kind of there's kind of a lot of fear mongering around that. And I kind of take the road where it's like, if you're shaming the voters, you're looking at the wrong, you're looking at the wrong area. You're kind of, you're not looking over, you're not seeing the forest, and I know a lot of people that, aren't going to vote for Biden or Trump. I mean, I live in California. I'm going to vote third party. I'm either going to vote for the socialist candidate or I'm going to vote for the green candidate. I actually haven't decided yet, but I'm going to vote for one of them unless something crazy happens and Biden's not the nominee, and we'll see who the nominee might be. But assuming nothing changes,
but they're not going to put up Bernie. That's what they're going to
stop Bernie Sanders.
Like God forbid anything was to happen to Biden, it could be like, the guy could, I'm not putting this out there, but I'm just saying the guy could have, pass away, and Biden, and Bernie was still not.
I was speaking like he could step down. I mean, it's not an impossibility that amidst all this, he might step down. I mean, I think it is possible. I don't know if it's good. I think it's unlikely, but I wouldn't say it's. I'll say this, man. I think there's a better chance that he would step down than he has a beat.
Okay.
Because I think
he could step down, but then
chance, even with this pandemic, I think there's about a 5% chance that Biden beats Trump. Now, again, disclaimer. You never know what could happen amidst the pandemic. Something crazy could happen, who knows? On the other hand, something could happen where Trump is pretty much guaranteed re-election. I mean, I think that if they do the right thing, and what I mean by the right thing is that they provide us all with an emergency UBI, because that's what they need to do at this point. I think if Trump does that, if Trump signs off on an emergency UBI, I mean, there's a bill out there right now that Bernie Sanders and Ed Markey and Kamala Harris, of all people, are behind. If that bill does go through and the United States citizens are getting $2,000 a month until this thing's over, I think Trump is guaranteed re-election. I mean, he gave us an emergency UBI. Come on, people are going to re-elect this guy. So that's the weird thing. Or he could just say hey, I would love to sign this bill, but the Democrats, they're not gonna put it on the thing. Nancy Pelosi, just blame it on them. Like he'll just say that he might not really want to do it, for one, right? But he could just say that he wants to do it because he knows it's not gonna pass by Nancy Pelosi and the Republicans. So he could just say, hey, listen, I'm down for this, but Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, they don't want to pass it. They don't want to get on board. They hate Bernie this much, man. I don't think that is a possibility. And you're right. If that happens, he will use that, and he will. I mean, man, you saw the way the Trump campaign just used that thing where Nancy Pelosi was showing off her ice cream freezer, which was ridiculous.
Oh my goodness!
Showing off your ice cream freezer.
I've heard
when people are starving, but I mean, you're right. So there's a number of ways that this
so bad.
It was horrible.
That was so bad.
I mean, first of all, I feel like if you're Nancy Pelosi and you're going to show off your kitchen, you should at least show us the oven that Hansel and Gretel were pushed into. I mean, come on, gotta at least. but so yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
man,
it's a crazy state of affairs right now. But I think. The one thing that I've been really inspired by is that, this is an opportunity for a lot of people to kind of think locally, for a lot of people to try to, kind of take their communities back. Because I think people are realizing how important that is. And I get contacted by all kinds of people, like people wanting to run for office and stuff like that. And the thing I've told people in the past, I'm like, look, running for Congress, running for the Senate, that's great. I'm not saying don't do that. That's great. And, grassroots candidates that I like what they have to say and I like what they're about, I'll totally support them. I'll totally have them on my show. I'll totally vote for them when I'm in their, if they're in my district and I can vote for them, But I also tell people, I'm like, look, run for city council, run for mayor, run for school board. I mean, that's all really important. And on the local level, you really do have a lot of power to make your community a better place and to do some amazing things. I mean, you look at someone like Shama Zuwan out of Seattle, to bring it back to Seattle. She's a socialist on the city council who has done amazing things. I mean, she has brought the fight for living wages. She's really been instrumental on making that national. She hasn't been working alone. There's been a big movement alongside her too. But she has used her role in the city council to really amplify that heavily and to really bring it into Seattle. So, I hope that we really start to try to look in our communities, because on the federal level, our government is really letting us down right now. And it's Republicans and it's Democrats too. And we're seeing that it's by design. But, if we start changing this country one community at a time, and that's what it's going to take, eventually that's going to be reflected nationally too. So.
What do you think about Justice Democrats and taking, what's it called, super PAC money? I
actually admittedly need to look more into it. I heard about it, but that's as far as I go. I admittedly have not been paying attention to the Justice Democrats for, I think, about 2 years now. And the reason for that is it's not like I'm, against them necessarily or anything like that. I mean, I've honestly just not followed them for a couple of years. The reason for that is because there were so many candidates where, I've had both reactions where I'd be like, why are Justice Democrats not supporting this candidate? Similarly, I've had other reactions where I'm like, why are they supporting this candidate? Because I think at one point they were working for Beto, with Beto O'Rourke, which why in the world would Justice Democrats be working with a Beto O'Rourke. He's, he never was a progressive, and when people were saying it early on, they got shamed for it until finally he was unmasked completely, and people realized, oh wait, yeah, he's not. So, I just and I don't remember exactly if he was just Democrat or not, but I think at one point he was doing something with that, where they said something in his favor, whereas there was an actual progressive who was running too, named Sema Hernandez. But anyway, so I've always just evaluated candidates as individuals. Like all the grassroots candidates I like right now, I have no idea if any of them are endorsed by the Justice Democrats or not. Like, I have no clue. And I just kind of look at them as individuals. Like, it's like, do they take PAC money? What policies do they represent? So I guess to make a long answer longer, I'm against them. I'm against them taking super PAC money. I think that kind of goes against the principle they were founded on. But as far as the details as to what's been revealed recently, I'm not as read up on it as other people who are following that organization way closer than I am.
Right. So on the political side, on my show, I usually don't talk about politics a lot because I get into a lot of arguments and fight about it because I'm something you clearly don't know because I haven't told you anything like that. But I was do you remember or do you know anything about TYT's Wolfpack? Okay, so I was one of the original members of TYT Wolfpack New Jersey, and I was able to get 2 of my senators to sign on to the Get Money Out of Politics. It's pretty much, if you don't know, guys, you're listening, it's an amendment calling for to get money out of politics by calling for a convention, and I was on the Justice Democrat. Well, not let's say Justice Wolfpack team of New Jersey to get money out of politics. And Jank said my name on the show. I was like the last person he named, but I was like involved with there with Walker Green and everything like that. And also, I was doing my political thing right there, trying to get money out of politics because that's what I believe. And also I'm progressive, but I'm a very strong progressive, which means like I will not, for no reason at all, will give up my principles of what I believe in order to get a win somewhere else. It's either this or nothing, and that's how I feel about it, and that's how I fight about it. Because if you're not willing to fight for the, if you're not willing to fight for the moon or shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you still be amongst the stars. So you'll get a lot of what you want, even though you'll stick by I want the moon. If you're not gonna give me the moon, I want a shot at it. If you're not gonna give me a shot at it, then I'm not gonna let you get a shot at it either. I'm not gonna give you what you want either. So I'm sort of like that, and I get into a lot of fights, a lot of political debate on Twitter and stuff like that. So I usually stay with.
Would say I'm the same way, but the way I see it is that I don't think there's anything that's unreasonable about what I'm asking for or what voters are asking for, and that's how I like to do it. I'm like, look, what is unreasonable about this? Okay, here's my quote unquote purity test. You want an actual Green New Deal, which the survival on the planet depends on, and a real Green New Deal, not a fake one, an actual one. You think that you think that living wages are important, that somebody who works an honest job for 40 hours a week should make enough money to freaking live. That's not unreasonable. You want to do something about the fact that that higher education is becoming solely reserved for the elite. And we can have free college programs in this country, and you pay for free college. You think that everyone should have health care, regardless of how much money's in their wallet. And you don't take corporate money because that would compromise your ability to deliver on any of these things. That's it. But like that, if you check all those boxes, well, there's probably a couple others too, but like those are the main things. You want to do something about the climate. You think people deserve fair wages, free college, single payer health care. You want to end our imperialism throughout the world. You think that, hey, we shouldn't be setting the Middle East on fire in pursuit of oil. And that's it. But what's unreasonable about any of that? I think that anyone who is just a reasonable human being who has anything resembling compassion would feel the same way about all those things. And then we can disagree on some of the details. Like, hey, should we really pursue a federal jobs guarantee or pursue a UBI? Okay, that's a conversation worth having. My personal opinion is we should pursue both, and it depends on how you unroll both. But, we can have that debate. Hey, how much money should go into infrastructure versus, free college or whatever? Okay, we can have that debate. That's where the political disagreements are. But as far as not even having these principles where you're like, well, a little bit of endless war for no reason where people are dying is okay. No, it's not okay. How is that okay? A little bit. It's okay if some people can't afford to go to a doctor. No, it isn't. We're the richest country in the world. And other countries have figured this out years ago. Other countries that doesn't have, I saw Billy Bragg do a show once. He's a punk musician out of the UK, been doing this thing a long time. And he just said, his opening line whenever he plays anywhere in the United States, he's like, look, guys, where I live in England, we have our problems. And you guys have your problems here in the US too. But I'll say this, in my country, nobody dies because they can't afford to go to a doctor. Nobody dies because of lack of health care. Nobody goes bankrupt because of medical bills. We fix that problem. And you guys need to fix it too. And it's not rocket science. There's an easy fix for it. So, I don't think there's anything unreasonable to expect from a politician. I actually think it's completely unreasonable to be the opposite, where you entertain the fantasy that promoting this status quo and the ugliness in our politics is somehow going to get us out of this mess, because it's not. You keep going lesser of two evils and this and that. You keep compromising on things that shouldn't be compromised on. We're going to keep getting. Hey.
And you're going to keep doing it.
We're centrist leaning show once, and we were kind of having that debate. And I was like, look, is it going to get to the point where a Democrat looks like Donald Trump and a Republican is an actual Nazi? Is it going to get to that point? And the person scoffed at me and was like, come on, Ron, that's ridiculous. Guess what just happened, okay? In Illinois, recently, there was an open Nazi running for Congress. There were a couple of them, actually, scattered throughout the country. One of them was in Illinois. They were running for office as a Republican. They were a certified Nazi. And guess what? As far as a Democrat looking like Donald Trump, guess who ran as a Democrat recently? Mike frickin' Bloomberg. So, turns out I wasn't embellishing.
Oh, yeah.
Turns out that's literally what's happening right now. So yeah, I'm with you. There's certain things that, but I'm not saying, I wouldn't frame it as we're the people who don't know how to compromise. I think we're the people who are actually totally reasonable and who are realizing that, this is how we get out of this mess.
I think that's a even better way of putting it. Now I can say whoever I'm arguing with now, I'm just listen, how are these things unreasonable, right? How can you fight against these things? I just don't get it, because that's how I feel. It's always, if you keep, all right, this is how I always break it down to them. All right, let's say this. Let's say you're living in your house, okay, but your mom or something, or your father, or your big brother, or whoever it is, your elder, whoever's making your breakfast, every day makes you pancakes. Now, pancakes is good, don't get me wrong, but pancakes every day, right? Every day, it's kind of getting on your nerves a little bit. It was can we have something different, right? Be oh, it's either pancakes or nothing, right? It's either pancakes or nothing. Well, if I don't want pancakes, all right, if I'm already sick of pancakes and you're gonna give me nothing, let's really see if you're gonna really give me nothing. So I choose nothing. Okay, I choose nothing. So then what they also like to do is like, all right, so if you choose nothing, that means your little brother or or whoever else is next to you, right? They're not gonna get nothing either if you don't take the pancakes. And I gotta look at them. I'm like, listen, we're gonna have to take an L here because I'm sure you're sick of getting pancakes too.
I think it's worse than that.
So
I think it's like it's more like you wake up every day and for breakfast it's like, okay, I can give you a punch in the throat or a kick in the nuts. Which one do you want? And it's like, you know what? I'd rather not have either of these things. I'd rather have pancakes or waffles or eggs or something. And they're like, well, if you don't take the punch in the face, you have no right to complain. And it's like, you know what? I'm not playing this game anymore. This game sucks. I'm tired of playing punch in the face or kick in the nuts. I want to play a better game. And it turns out the game is rigged. So I'm going to build a new fucking game.
And that is how, that's how you do it, man. That's how you do it. That was perfect.
I kind of got to go.
Literally perfect.
So,
Yeah. No problem. Yeah. I was going to say, and that's how we wrap up the episode just like that, guys. So, guys, listen, if you're a progressive listening to the show, listen, buddy. The best way for us, if you really want to change, the change that you want, we have to go from the ground up. We have to go on the local level, and then we have to go, to the governors, to the senators. We have to grow from the bottom up. Go for the mayor, student council, whatever you need to do. Get in your local elections, and then we grow from there. It's the only way it seems that we're gonna get to where we need to get to as far as changing the country in the best way that we think is the best way, because none of our requests are unreasonable. But once again, we got Ron Placone from the Get Your News on Ron Placone show.
Sorry.
Ron, let everybody let everybody know where they can find you.
And you can find me youtube.com/Ron Placone, where I do my live stream. And it's also, you can find Get Your News on with Ron as a podcast, wherever you get your podcast. And Twitter is where I'm most active social media-wise. And you can find me at Ron Placone on Twitter. I'm also Ron Placone on Instagram, Ron Placone Comedy on Facebook. Ron Placone, you can find me. I'm all over the place.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Thank you, Ron, for coming on. And you guys, I wish you guys the best. Hope you guys stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.